Borderlands 3 released in 2019, and my brother bought it for me for my birthday because he's a cool guy like that. I think I probably bought him Call of Duty that year in return, whatever. Naturally, having got the game as a gift, I then proceeded to not play it a single time. I don't even think I installed it at any point with the intention of playing it. Not really sure why in hindsight. I guess I was just busy and doing other things at the time and just never got around to it. I don't actually remember. It definitely wasn't the more mixed reaction that the game got, as I didn't find out about that until way later. But with the fourth game coming out soon, actually it might even be out already depending on when this video comes out. I don't actually know, I haven't planned that far ahead. Anyway, with that in mind, I grabbed a friend and finally set about playing and indeed platinuming Borderlands 3. Before getting into that though, I do have a couple things to note. First, I'm not going to mention every single trophy/achievement. Some are easy and just not worth mentioning specifically. Also, I'm not going to go deep on any plot events or anything like that. That's not the point of this video, it's not what it's about. I will give my brief thoughts on the overall story as a whole later on though, without any spoilers. So I think the most notable and obvious thing to me while playing through the main story and all the side quests we come across is that this game is really easy. Maybe we just happened to get really good gun drops, but we were slaughtering bosses and regular enemies without issue in seconds. And speaking of those drops, it also felt like we were getting way more legendaries more frequently than in previous games, though admittedly it has been a while since I've played previous games. Yes, there is mayhem mode in the game, which makes it harder, but you have to finish the main story before that unlocks, so our main game experience was really easy. For the platinum, you need to beat the main story, obviously, but you also need to finish every side quest in the game, or at least the ones that were in there at launch. There was some added, I think, but they're not necessary. We did end up turning Mayhem mode on after beating the main story, just so the game had a bit more challenge to it. None of the side quests, though, were particularly difficult, though there are some areas, like the Circles of Slaughters, for instance, that you never actually need to go to in the main story, so they're probably the quests you're missing. They do count as quests, as do the Proving Grounds, but these also give additional achievements for clearing all of each. As I said, we did a co-op run, which is good because there are actually trophies needing co-op. These are for reviving a player, winning a duel, and sending a gun to another player. Not hard, but you need someone else to do it, so if you have no friends, get some friends. After doing all the quests, we began what I'm going to call the collectible hunt part of the game. Specifically, this is all named locations, all zero targets, all hammerlock hunts, and all iridium slabs. Named locations can kind of be tracked on the map, thankfully. You can see how many locations are on any particular map. Something that we definitely didn't learn until a ways into our search and knew about the whole time. Definitely. The only location I really remember needing to specifically look up is this one underneath a waterfall. It's really precise where you need to stand for it to register. Zero and hammerlock hunts are basically the same thing, named stronger enemies that you need to defeat. These are also on the map, and as I said, we didn't struggle at any point. The iridium slabs can also be tracked the same way through the map, but these have to be done relatively late into the game as you don't get the device needed to decipher them until pretty late in the main story. So we just saved all of these for the post-game. Luckily, these stay on the map if you find them before being able to translate them, so it's easy to go back and find the earlier ones. All that, though, really is the majority of the platinum. Like, there are some miscellaneous ones, some of which I'll highlight in a second, but that's the hard part done. There's an achievement for using a golden key, which unless I'm missing something, you can only get by putting in codes that you get from outside the game. It's not hard to find some, just do a Google search, but boy was this a whole lot of extra work that I was not happy about needing to do. Would have been cool if there were like codes written on the walls in toilets in-game or something, unless there are some and I'm just really dumb. You also need to get a perfect score in the firing range, which I didn't find hard, though we did have 2 players which made it easier. But I had to mention it as it's actually one of the rarest trophies in the base game, with only finding all locations and clearing all side quests being rarer than it. The last one I want to highlight is for getting a loyalty bonus from every manufacturer. What this means is that you need to get an email from each gun manufacturer with a reward. Apparently, from looking this up, you get these per 100 kills with a weapon from that brand. This was a pain to me as I liked using like one gun and not anymore. Like, give me the Jacobs shotgun and I will not need anything else. Once I realized what to do though, I just swapped them around as we went through the game. The hard part is knowing the requirements, frankly, which thank you Google. With that though, I got the Platinum Trophy, and apparently only 48% of the trophies, according to the PlayStation tracker bar? Huh. So yeah, I bought the DLC as well. I was actually enjoying playing the game with my friend, and the DLC was on offer. Seemed like a no-brainer, personally. I'll go through all the DLCs in the order that we went through them, but just to save me some breath, I'll just say that yes, you need to beat the main story for all of them. You knew that already, but I'll get it out of the way now so I don't need to say it for the next 6 parts or so. And we'll instead just talk about like extra trophies that need a bit more work. We'll start with the Mad Moxie DLC. At this point we had gone into Mayhem mode, so the combat was actually at least a little bit thrilling. Though that's not DLC specific, I still wanted to mention it just so everyone was aware of what we were dealing with here. First thing we did after beating the DLC story was go and do all the crew challenges around the map. These are destroying the Torg hot sources, sabotaging the statues for Ember, and finding all the mayor's outfit. We did this last as some of these won't spawn until you meet the relevant character in the story. It wasn't too hard, we just fully explored the maps and found them all, didn't even look it up. You also need to get a 21 in Blackjack, which is on these chests. I wish I could tell you anything specific from what we did, but from what I can tell it's completely random, just keep trying it until you get 21. I never actually did this, my co-op partner did it and I got the trophy despite being on the other side of the map. So I guess everyone in a game will get this if at least one person does it. There are other achievements like this as well, but this was the first one that I noticed. The last one for this DLC is for beating the Debt Collector, who is a random spawn after beating a particular side quest. As I said, it's random, and the easiest way to reload the area for this and the 21 trophy and any other random chance ones are to re-roll your Mayhem mode modifiers and then apply, which will reload the area. Last thing, this is the only area that this guy spawns as far as I'm aware. The second DLC is one of my favourites. It's either this or the Krieg one for me personally. I really like the Cthulhu, Lovecraft-esque aesthetic of this DLC. Pretty cool. First thing to note on trophies though is that you have to do all side quests and all crew challenges. Easy to track on the map for both. What can't be tracked as easily are the echo logs. I'm going to be real with you, this is the only thing we just decided to look the locations up online. They're easy to miss even when you're in the exact right area, so I don't even feel guilty about googling this one. Sorry. There's 4 rare spawns, which I think we found without needing to reset any areas, just exploring, so that was lucky. Then there's letting Deathtrap get 50 kills, and boy, this was a struggle. Admittedly, we should have been more aware of this and let him get some kills earlier on in the story, but since we beat the DLC without getting this, we had to go to the boss of one of the later areas and just let Deathtrap kill enemies in there. Problem is he would rather target the boss, and he's basically a single target guy, so this was finicky and a pain, but eventually he did defeat enough enemies for the trophy. Also, Gage is voiced by Jeremy Lee in this game, which was cool because she's also Asuna Sword Art Online and Makoto Persona 5, among many others. I thought that was really neat. Last achievement is for hearing 25 fish jokes. Way I got this was just talking to the fish in the lodge and then reloading with the Mayhem mode trick from earlier and then repeating and repeating until I get the trophy. Bounty of Blood is really easy to explain. To get all the achievements, you just need to beat all the main and side missions and all the crew challenges. Now there are a lot of crew challenges in this DLC, but one useful thing is that as long as you don't need to open a chest, then the trophy progress counts across players, so we were able to split up to make this easier. Krieg's DLC is also very easy, the majority are for main and side missions and crew challenges. There's a lot less to do in this one than the last, and we actually managed to do everything before beating the main story, so they aren't even really out of the way. The only exception in the trophies is for opening the gates to Valhalla. To do this, you need to shoot some patterns on the wall before you go in the vault and then open a gate in the vault, and then you have to shoot some even smaller patterns to open the second gate, and that gets you the trophy. Now that is the end of the proper DLCs, but there are some smaller DLCs that cost the same amount of money as the other 4, which is ridiculous. The first set of DLC are worth way more than the second, but whatever. We're going to do the second one of these first because that's what we did for reasons I will get to. So first we did the new Ava podcast quests. These are easy, nothing really to say on them, they're just more quests with everyone's favourite character. Upon finishing these, you get an artifact that lets you see special iridium piles, and for a trophy you need to destroy 50 of these. Best place to grind it is this hole in the ground in the Voracious Canopy. You can use the Mayhem mode reload to respawn the piles. The final of 3 whole DLC trophies for this one is for defeating the Hemovorus. You can get this quest from Claptrap's room. He's easy if you turn off Mayhem mode. We did this after beating him with it on just to see the difference, and yeah, even Mayhem mode level 1 is a lot more difficult than without it. Okay, on to the final DLC. It's Arms Race. This is an extraction shooter type mode that starts you with no gear and has the worst achievement in the game. But first you need to win a round of Arms Race. You do this by beating the boss, find a good gun, and then go do that. It's not free, but it's really not bad. Next, find all locations on the map. Pretty sure this one bugged out for us. It gave us the achievement when we found about half the locations, so my assumption is that we both found 10 locations, and the game was like, yeah, 10 plus 10, that's 20, and then gave us the trophy. I'll take it, not gonna complain. The final trophy for this DLC and the game as a whole needs you to extract 100 total items from this mode. So the first thing that we luckily caught on to pretty early was that it only counts if the host extracts things, which is stupid and dumb and I hate it. So we did everything else in the game in co-op, and then for the final achievement we had to do it solo. Mind you, this could have been a blessing in disguise for us, as for whatever reason this DLC was incredibly laggy. No idea why, I assume it's just because it sucks. But yeah, best way to do this is just grab the chest at spawn, run to the nearest extractor, extract the 3 items, die, and repeat. Takes a while, but the alternative is playing this mode a lot, which is something I just don't want to do. It's a shame that this is all Axton and Salvador had to do in this game, but that was my final trophy, and finally my brother can stop going on at me as I 100%'ed Borderlands 3. So after all that, how do I feel about the game? Well, to start, I think the game's more negative reputation was kind of exaggerated to me. Like, yes, it had a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, but people described it to me as if it had single-handedly caused their divorce. In terms of actually playing the game, I quite enjoyed it, to be honest, although it might have just been because I was playing with a friend. My biggest complaint regarding gameplay was that at its base level, it was just way too easy. The actual story was, to be honest, not exactly my cup of tea, but it's far from the worst thing I've ever seen. There were certainly moments that I wasn't the biggest fan of, you know the one, and characters that were kind of annoying. Again, you know the one. But I'm not completely out on what they were trying to do with the story, but the execution left a lot to be desired. One thing I will say is that I'm very glad I bought the DLCs. I found that the best stuff was in them, except from Arms Race. And the DLCs basically doubled my playtime for the 100%. Considering I got them on sale, it really felt like I got my money's worth. As far as platinuming, this game is pretty easy all things considered, especially if you don't include the DLCs. I haven't got any of the other Borderlands platinums except Tales of the Borderlands, but that doesn't count. So I don't really have anything to compare it to, but this one was fun and easy. The only really bad time-consuming grind of an achievement was that 100 extractions in Arms Race. Everything else, including other collectible ones, were pretty simple, especially if you're looking things up. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Borderlands 3, and I'm glad that I finally took the time to go through it. Hopefully Borderlands 4 doesn't take me another 6 years or so. And that's the video. If you enjoyed it, press a like on it, and while you're down there, why not subscribe? It's free, helps me out, and gives you easy access to my videos, both old and new. And also, yes, I will likely do a video on Borderlands 4 soon-ish, so stick around to see that if you'd like. Let me know if you've platinumed the game and if you agree with any of my takes, or you think that I'm just too overly positive. I get that sometimes, it's fine. Or just give me any other thoughts in the comments, that's also nice. Thank you for watching. For now though, I'm off, hunt them troves, and I'll see you next time.